UNL fans, to the Spring Cycle UNL Review. Joining me tonight, the one, the only, Brad Norman. How you doing tonight, Brad?
I am doing wonderful, Mr. Anderson. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you so much for being on. It is a privilege to have you as the guest co-host this cycle, filling in for the ladies' choice, Jake Joyce.
There's really no filling in for Jake, though. I don't think so. Maybe some different verbiage there, but I just couldn't sit on the sidelines anymore and listen to our friend Jake bash my good pal Texas Hick Rick Rancher any longer. So I'm here to defend Mr. Rancher's honor tonight.
Could we send somebody to check on Jake, make sure that he's okay? Just, in case something may have happened to our good friend.
I think old Jake's just fine.
I mean, he does say some pretty inflammatory things about Mr. Rancher.
He does, but tonight we will set the record straight.
I like it. So, speaking of setting a record straight, would you like to read down our champions list for us?
I was deathly afraid that you were going to ask me to do that, and I would be delighted to. I will mess up half these names, and I apologize for that, but after hearing you and Jake read them down, I have a decent idea of what at least you think they sound like, so here we go. United Nations League Cycle 14 League Champion, Anne's Bodyguard, Zhang Fei. TV Champion, Anne Spivey. Brazil Champion, the Canadian crippler Antoine Martin. China Champion, Vexing Vladimir Verklempt. Great Britain Champion, Tin Batsu. India Champion, Bandil Naidu, also our United Nations champion, of course. Iran Champion, Akbar. Japan Champion, the sensitive, misunderstood Texas Hick Rick Rancher. Mexico Champion, Strongman Tobin Wells. Nigeria Champion, Naul. Russia Champion, the Samoan bulldozer, Tonga Mang. And, it's interesting and kind of rare to see a first cycle wrestler on the title page so quickly. But it's great to see. It's great to see new blood joining for sure. United States Champion, the Flying Dragon, Philippe Rousseau. Tag Team Champions, Naul, Valen Aria. Those guys win the tag straps almost every cycle, it seems like. Well, I know they at least repeated because they won the 5 free matches. TV Tag Champs, Quebec Hitman, MRP, and the Russian Reaper. Those guys always seem to be on the title page, too. I think there's a very kind of understated tag presence, perhaps, in the UNL with those guys. And then you've got Blood Money, and then CC DeVille and Akbar typically make that page, too. Very good tag teams. Finishing up, we've got our 6-man champions, Valen Aria and Blood Money. Hot Stuff Adam Cash, Fatty the Butcher. Our TV 6-man, CC DeVille, Texas Hick, Rick Rancher, Vexing Vladimir Verklempt.
A couple things that I noticed. First of all, Anne and her bodyguard, top 2 titles this cycle. Congratulations to David. Good work. Good to see Martin and Rousseau back. And wouldn't you know it, they're both on the title page. Kudos to them. As already mentioned, the inaugural cycle of the Samoan Bulldozer and got on the title page. Awesome. Glad to have that particular manager, who I didn't check if I could say who he was, so we'll get on that, find out for next cycle. And I do want to mention that one of the tag teams in the finals for the World Tag Team Championship is included with separate partners on this current page. So Naul and the Hitman going against Rancher and Wells. So pretty exciting stuff there. I also want to mention that I have it on good authority that Valen Aria did not betray his Noble House brethren, and he was not thrilled to win the 6-man titles with Blood Money. And he hopes that this does not hurt his chances at a potential entry into Noble House, because Valen Aria wants in Noble House.
I think we all want Valen Aria in Noble House, right?
I mean, he's been asking for a while now, so just waiting on the official word. Did you have anything to mention about the eclectic mix here for the TV 6-man title? Seems like DeVille and Rancher and Verklempt are a pretty interesting mix.
They are. I think, to your point too, it kind of mirrors what the what the title sheet looks like, all told, with, to your point, Ann's Bodyguard and being league and TV. Certainly check me if I'm wrong, but I think that the previous time Ann's Bodyguard was league champ and was also TV, so those guys are strong together quite often. The Crippler and Flying Dragon coming back, a new wrestler on the title page. It's an eclectic mix altogether. I think your point about the six-man or the TV six-man is right. You've got the big Texan who, rightly or wrongly, certainly has a strong opinion on all sorts of things. Vladimir Verklempt, who does not speak English very well. And then CC DeVille, who is the, nothing but a good time, likes to party. I could see CC and Rancher specifically getting along pretty well.
Obviously, they did okay because they won the TV six-man titles, which, by the way, I have not been posting on the UNL board, but still does get you 2 free scrub matches. CC DeVille, Rick Rancher, and Vladimir Verklempt will receive 2 free scrub matches from your esteemed UNL commissioner. So challenge for those TV six-man titles, and hopefully get yourself a couple scrub matches.
The UNL might have the best scrub names of any league that I'm in. They are fantastic.
Well, I wish I could take credit for them, but I did come up with most of them.
You literally can't take credit for them.
There were quite a few. Okay. There were Calvin Steele, Billy Knapp, running down through a couple of these really quick. Trinidad and the Tobago Kid. That was not me. I believe that was Jake. Sorry if I missed anybody. I'm going to feel bad now if I missed somebody. But there were some suggested names here, but I did come up with a few that I think are pretty funny. So
I mean Nook, the known weapon, gets me every single time I see it.
I think that came up because Jake said he liked Nook, the secret weapon, and so I made a play on it.
Oh, so good.
Chaos and Exterminator are, I believe, former characters of Tom. And then, actually, there are former characters of mine back when I was just a wee lad. Some of my old wrestlers from back in the 90s are some of the scrub wrestlers here. So when you're beating up Fantastic Scott Davidson or Crazy Man Alan Dice, that is an ode to wrestlers of a bygone era. Good stuff. Yeah, thanks. I enjoy our scrub names also. Poor Decent Muda. He is at the bottom of the list there.
We saw Mr. I know we'll get into the trash talk or the TT in a little bit, but I enjoy a couple of them so much I had to work them into Vladimir's trash talk this cycle.
Yes, very much appreciated. I enjoyed that. Yes, we will get to that for sure. So speaking of, before I forget, those of you who are listening who are managers in the UNL, the upcoming cycle, as you may have seen already on the UNL board, is number 15. It is another cycle where if you choose to do a match deal, you can take an additional 20 free scrub matches. You just have to make sure you let the IWA know. So for $12, you're going to get your 20 matches and then 40 scrub matches. Just to reiterate and beat a dead horse, those 40 scrub matches can be for one wrestler, or they can be split between the 2 wrestlers that you have in the UNL.
And I would say, if anyone listening is on the fence about that, do the match deal. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's a great idea. It's a great concept. It's an easy way to, if you want to pad a record, that's fine. I think even more than padding an individual record, though, we are bolstering the league in terms of the sheer volume of matches, and you always want to be in that top 10 IWA wide, which I believe in cycle 12 we were. Is that right?
You are correct, sir. We made it by one match, so I'll take it. The IWA, I've said this off air a lot. The IWA, I think, is on quite an uptick in activity. There were cycles last year where leagues under 50 cards were in the top 10. In the last 4 or 5 cycles, you've had to have at least 60 to be in the top 10. So we're not even at 50 or 55. There are leagues that have 60 cards that are being left out of the top 10. And that's awesome for the IWA in general. So hard as it is to get in the top 10, if the UNL can be in the top 10 every third cycle, that'd be just fine with me.
I don't know that we would that we would necessarily call it an IWA renaissance happening, but the action is definitely upticking, and I think a lot of that stems from some of the more creative leagues that are being brought in. The IWAR obviously is fantastic, has 4 great leagues with great managers. Add the UNL to that, add the LWL, the Lone Wolf League and Jade to that. But you've got, the High Rollers League started, and I think that's really interesting. And there are some other kind of ideas floating around out there and some really active commissioners. All of that is good for the game. It's good for the health of the game. It's good competition for everybody, too.
Yes, I could not agree more. Just sign my name on that dotted line. I think, to your point, I think what's happened over the last year or two or year and a half is that people are starting the leagues that they would want to play in. Like, I would want to play in a league like the UNL, so that's what came about. Wes wanted a league like GNL, and he started that, and it's awesome. The High Rollers League and Al, I mean, they're doing good work over there. What else? Flip and his MML, I mean, they've been 70 cards or plus for 7 or 8 cycles now. I mean, I think what is good is that people are getting into the type of play that they would want to do, and other players are gravitating towards that enthusiasm. So,
very well said, Mr. Anderson.
Well, I just piggybacked your good statement. So, getting back to the UNL, our United Nations League, what do you think of the cover for the spring cycle with the leader of the Blazer Corporation?
I think it's fantastic. I don't know if I like the sunglasses more, the thumbs up, or that's a Simpsons shirt. Am I correct there?
I believe it is. This is actually a picture that he had for himself in that cycle's NWL report, and
Gotcha.
I just blew it up and put it on here. I thought it was awesome, so I wanted to use it. Yeah.
I think it looks great. I think Jim's a good guy to put on the cover. I like the work that he does. I think he has good characters. He's active every cycle. He has trash talk every cycle. It's good to spread the cover wealth when you have a lot of managers like that who are active and contributing and hitting the title page.
You are correct, sir. I am a fan of the Blazer Corporation, and what I appreciate, not to knock anybody who doesn't do this, okay, but what I appreciate that he does is that all of his characters and all of his leagues are different wrestlers, and so he has to come up with these unique characters in each of the leagues that he is in. So I think that's cool. I like reading about his Frogger Dixon or Gary Galaxy. Oh, I'm a Gary Galaxy fan.
Gary Galaxy's really good.
Opening up the report, you see our rules and prizes. We already mentioned those. Our title page. This upcoming cycle, Cycle 15, is the third of 3 for the series for the United Nations and the Can-Am and the International. So those will all complete their series this cycle. In addition to being important because you would like to be those champions, the winners of those series will go into the crossover collision with the opportunity to win those free matches and have some league pride in representing the UNL. Television champion, rechristened from the Continental title, Vladimir Verklempt, retained yet again. Only champion we've had. So he won that in cycle 8, right? Because that would have been the Rumble. Successfully defended 5 times. It's pretty incredible. So upcoming against Zhang Fi this cycle. Good luck to both of those gentlemen. Oh, big news for the World Tag. I think since we are nearing completion of the tournament, it is important to reveal or explain how the World Tag title will be defended. What we will do is any team made up of 2 national or 2 international characters can challenge the World Tag Team Champions. If they defeat the World Tag Team Champions in a non-title match, the following cycle, they can challenge them a second time for the title. So you have to beat the World Tag Team Champions twice in consecutive cycles, in order to become the World Tag Team Champion.
That makes sense. There's no champion's advantage then, right? Because the advantage of being the tag team champion is that the first match signed is a non-title match.
You are correct, sir. Yes, that is the champion's advantage, is that they get one, right? So the first match is non-title, and then the second match is for the titles. Try and completely answer that question. If a team challenges the champions, they win by 1 point. Next cycle, they challenge again, they win by 1 point. They are the champions. Now, caveat with that, though, is if two teams challenge the World Tag Team Champions and they both defeat the World Tag Team Champions, they both qualify for title matches the next cycle. If they both challenge the second cycle and they both win again, the team that wins by the most will become the World Tag Team Champion. If they both win by the same number in that title match, we'll look back to the non-title match for who would become champions. If that is the same number, then we have an issue, and we may have to hold up the titles and put them into abeyance. So we'll see. Hopefully that doesn't happen.
I hope there's not going to be a quiz on that.
Abeyance is just a fancy word for vacant. They've used it a couple times in the World Wrestling Entertainment. And I always think it's funny when they use abeyance.
The World Tag may be my favorite. It's not even crowned yet, but it may be my favorite of the UNL kind of commissioners champions, because I just think the concept is really, you don't want to say realistic for a fake play-by-mail wrestling game, but the fact that you have to be two national wrestlers, it's real to me. You have to be two national wrestlers together, or you have to be two international wrestlers together. That's logical, and it makes sense to me. And it also forces you, if you want to be serious about it, to interact with another manager. And I think that's crucial for just, you're bouncing stuff off each other, you're getting ideas, hopefully you're both getting better. I would imagine that the people on Facebook who are on the UNL board and the people who listen to the Tubecast are active, and ideally kind of DMing each other on the back end saying, hey, do you want to practice? Do you want to flow together? Do you want to work together? Do you want to set your strategies with each other so you're not shooting blindly? I think it adds another dimension to the gameplay in this league, at least.
Well, thank you. I believe that is an accurate assessment. I do want to give credit. I believe that was an idea that Matt floated to me about making ice, because I said I want the tag titles to be something different, and I think that was an idea that he had come up with, this idea of having national wrestlers team with national wrestlers. So shout out to him for that idea. It's a good one. I think it's going to work out really well for our World Tag. And I think it plays into, in addition to this idea of working with other managers, it plays into this idea that the UNL is a 2-wrestler limit, right? So it's a 2-wrestler limit, but it's not your 2 wrestlers that are challenging for the tag titles. Hopefully that works out well. If anybody has any questions, let me know. As with a lot of things, if it needs adjusting, it'll get adjusting, but I think it's going to work out pretty well. So you see our rankings next. Then there's Cromwell's Corner. Do you want to speak about Mr. Cromwell a little for us?
I would be delighted to. Mr. Cromwell, who hat tip to the esteemed commissioner himself for finding that photo for me. Just fantastic. So I write that. I enjoy doing it because I think it's a natural way into the cycle, if that makes sense. If real life stuff happens and you can't trash talk for a cycle, or you read the bulletin as soon as you get it and you kind of have slipped on what happens, hopefully the bullet points there are kind of top level storylines to get you excited about the feuds we have going on, the pay-per-views coming up, the kind of mass critical storylines that have been developed over the past couple months. So that's the way that I approach it, at least. I hope it's entertaining. And then when you have guys like, the Samoan Bulldozer Tonga Main come in, all of the bulletins are online now, but there's not an archive of them. So if you wanted to go check out, UNL number 9 as a new player, you can't do that. But if you read the corner, you should have a general idea of what's going on.
Agreed. Again, I feel like I'm just going to have a little button that says, I agree with your statement, because you make excellent points here, sir.
It's like the Staples, that was easy button, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I enjoy Cromwell's Corner. I appreciate you doing it. I think it's important for the report to have another voice, and so it is very much appreciated. your contribution there.
I enjoy doing it. Thank you for asking, and thank you for not censoring Mr. Cromwell.
Oh, I don't believe in very much censorship, so that's across the board. So Cromwell can pretty much get away with whatever he wants to get away with. Pushing the envelope. Moving on, our global tournaments. Congratulations to Akbar winning his second global tournament. Interesting stuff. I know we don't talk about the global tournaments a lot in our TT, and that's cool. I'm not down in that. But I do think it's interesting that we've had several wrestlers who have won more than one tournament, and that will be a primary focus of our fall pay-per-view, the winners of the global tournaments. So that is something on our back burner after we do Tuesday night's main event, which we'll talk about, after we do the crossover collision with the LNL with a special appearance by the New Wave League. After that, we will shift focus to our fall pay-per-view. So that will be the focus of our fall pay-per-view, the winners of the global tournament having probably a one-night tournament, but we may do something where there's a qualifying round, maybe 2 or 3 cycles before, so that the final tournament at the pay-per-view is an 8-person tournament. It's kind of what I've got in the back of my mind. So somebody who wins 2 tournaments would automatically make it to that final 8. So if that's how that plays out, we'll have to wait and see.
What about someone who's won 4 tournaments?
Well, I believe Rick Rancher has only won 3 at this point. Probably going to win a 4th one soon. So when Rick Rancher wins a 4th tournament, there's a good possibility that he will be granted a bye into like the semifinals, because what else are you going to do? There's nobody else in the tournament because it's just Rick Rancher. So kudos to that guy. Speaking of which, I will make one more note. I was really hoping that the finals of the global tournament number 10 would be Valinaria against Naul. As it turns out, the other 2 wrestlers won. And so neither of those competitors will be in the final. This upcoming cycle's final will be Rick Rancher, aforementioned, and CC DeVille. Oh, aren't they TV 6-man?
They are TV 6-man champs, but they will put that tepid friendship on the back burner for the global tournament final.
I would sell my friend out for 5 free matches, no doubt. No doubt. Speaking of, I believe, let me double check. We had 12 or 13 active managers this cycle. Let's double check. 12. We had 12 active managers this cycle. If we get that number up to 15, prize for the global tournaments ups to 10 free matches. So just putting that out. If you know somebody who's looking to join another league, there's also a prize in the UNL where you get 5 free matches and your buddy gets 5 free matches. Doesn't even have to be your buddy. You don't even have to like him. Just say, hey, join this league and we'll each get 5 free matches. So that said, moving on. Global tournaments, pretty fun for me. I feel like I've gotten into a pretty good groove with those. The World Tag Title Contest. Hopefully that picture will be plastered into this Tubecast. We are into the finals. As previously mentioned, the Quebec Hitman, RMP, and Naul will go against, of course, Texas Hick Rick Rancher and his partner, Strongman Tobin Wells. Any additional comments on the World Tag Team Title Contest? We did talk a little bit already about the World Tag Titles themselves.
I love the double elimination. I think that's smart. The tag strats can just be so wild from cycle to cycle, and especially lately with, I don't know about you, but bronze in general has been kind of kooky lately. So the double elimination, I think, has given some padding, and I also think it's kind of built like this sort of long, slow burn where it takes a little bit of time to develop, but the payoff is worth it in the end. Mr. Cromwell, if you'll remember, a few cycles ago identified the Quebec Hitman and Naul as the favorites, and they emerged from the winner's bracket unscathed. So I would still consider them the favorites. Perhaps Mr. Rancher and Mr. Wells have a little something up their sleeve for next cycle.
Certainly a possibility. So, Mr. Cromwell correctly identified that team coming out of the winner's bracket there, but never know. Rancher and Wells could certainly pull out 2 in a row. So, speaking of that, what will happen is this cycle will be the first match in what could be potentially 2 matches. If the Hitman and Naul are able to be successful this cycle, they will become champions. If Rancher and Wells win this cycle, there will be a second and final match for the titles in cycle 16. So good luck to all 4 of those managers, 2 of which are on the show right now. Not to be forgotten is the $8 in IWA/UNL credit that each manager will receive for winning the tournament. So not bad. Not bad at all. Any additional comments on the crossover collision pay-per-view coming up on July 10th? I've mentioned it a couple times already. Anything additional to say on that?
I think it's a great idea. I love when done kind of correctly and collaboratively, maybe is the better word, to have those sort of league crossovers. It exposes, it's going to expose the UNL managers to the LNL if they're not exposed to it already, and vice versa. I can't remember if it was the spring cycle or the April cycle where a handful of UNL wrestlers made an appearance on an LNL pay-per-view. I thought that was a great touch and a lot of fun to read. The prizes are nothing to sneeze at either, especially that main event, the UN champion versus the Underworld champion, 10 free matches. It's a great idea. The artwork for it is really nice. The design for it is nice. I like the addition of the NWL too, because it exposes some of the rookie players into some of, in my opinion, some of the better leagues, especially in bronze, but throughout the IWA probably altogether, and maybe gives them a landing point for where they want to transfer to after their rookie time is up, or if they want to create new wrestlers, I guess in the UNL they'd have to. So I think it's good exposure for that group too.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the goal. The goal was to include the rookies from the NWL without asking them to compete necessarily one-on-one against what I would consider more veteran talent. I think that the NWL they were included without permission in a couple of events over the past year, and I wanted to include them in something with permission, but also in a way that was hopefully non-threatening, right? Because it's going to be a main event. It's going to be the odd-numbered holds, so it's like a battle royal in that regard, right? Only what 8 holds this event is going to choose. So we do have a few entries from the NWL and a few entries from the LNL. Those entries are due, as it mentions there, by June 19th. So you have, if you don't get them in this cycle, you have until next cycle. Sorry to say, this event has been promoted for about 13 cycles now. So if someone emails me on June 20th and says, hey, man, can I still enter? I'm going to say, Dean Ambrose, nope. Please just make sure you get your entries in by June 19th. I believe that should be the date of the next bronze run after this cycle. To your point, it was this last cycle, the spring cycle, where some UNL stars made an appearance to close out the LNL pay-per-view that they had, Gateway to Hell. It was a good show, despite our friendly competition here. I do have it on good word that Spike Pratt and I are relatively on good terms because we are the same person. So I will send that. I will send that to the man behind the curtain so he can post that last page there. I would say, those of you who are familiar with the Living Nightmare League, that the UNL stars showing up at their show and closing out their show by beating up their new champion and their tag team champions will probably have some consequences. The managers in the LNL, not to be trifled with, and the UNL stars went and trifled. So just laying it out there, if Jason Voorhees comes and cuts your arm off, it could happen.
Makes me a little extra nervous for that Tuesday night main event that happens about a month before the collision.
Oh, I mean, that would be an opportunity for retribution. So we will have to wait and see how all of that plays out.
I would like to see Michael Myers or Jason and Rancher face to face, right? Like, talk about worlds colliding.
No doubt. As much as I truly love doing the work in the LNL, it's a lot of fun. I try not to mention it too much on this Tubecast because it's like keeping your universes separate, right? Even though we are doing this pay-per-view. So that doesn't make sense. But my point is, I try not to cross-promote too much on this particular show. But if you are interested in what I would consider just a lighthearted, fun league, the UNL characters, the managers there are great. The manager for Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, I'm not sure who he is, but he does great stuff. He's so funny. Catfish Rob is there. As stated on the IWAR Network page, Catfish Rob, sorry to everyone else, is my absolute favorite manager in the IWA. So he is there. Got several other really, really amazing managers there. The manager for the Dragons in particular. So if you're interested, check it out. It's worth a look. The LNL did enter the top 10 past cycle. So
nice.
Despite what you may have heard, I think the LNL is doing pretty well as it is. It is a 4-wrestler limit, but I think that works out pretty well for the LNL. So that said, the UNL Stars showed up on their show, beat up their new champion, and then beat up the tag team champions who tried to make a save. So I would wholeheartedly expect that the LNL monsters will not take that lightly. So good luck. I just hope they don't kill any of us. Next page, as mentioned, we have our Tuesday night's main event coming up, the cycle before Crossover Collision, and it will actually be the cycle 16. It'll be the cycle after our upcoming May cycle. Got some good matches, I think, set up there. Some personal feuds, hopefully going to be settled. Would you like to go over some of those matches briefly?
Certainly. I think feuds is, obviously the right way to say it. There are a number that have not yet been settled, either at the Rumble or since the Rumble. So the main event makes sense to me. It's almost like a Tuesday in Texas kind of vibe where you're settling some scores. But so what we've got announced are Ann Spivey versus the Hick from Texas, Rick Rancher. That's been going on for a few cycles now, and it hasn't quite slowed up, even though Rancher is involved in the United Nations series with Bandil Naidu. That one's got a little bit of spice to it. That brought out some of maybe Rick Rancher's less flattering side with his comments there. That might be putting it kindly. I did have a question for you though.
Oh yeah, sure.
For this match or for any of these matches, let's say the UN Championship best of 3 ends this coming cycle. If Rick Rancher were to win that series, and it is super close right now, is the match against Ann Spivey, is that for the title? Is it part of the start of a series, or is that just totally separate and this is more like a grudge match, so to speak?
Excellent question, and the answer is that this would not be for the title. This is a grudge match. This is separate in that regard from the United Nations title. That title defense is dependent upon trash-talking wrestler with the highest strategy from the past 3 cycles. It is theoretically possible, of course, that Ann Spivey will have the highest strategy average over the last 3 cycles, and then it would be a part of that series. But this is not a particular match for the title, no. Something that your question does remind me of, though, is that what's not listed here that is highly probable to be listed in the next report is some of the stipulations that have come up with a few of these matches, including what I would assume the next one you're going to mention between Naul and Jacob Vandenberg, where it is a pink lemonade dunk match. And I think Jake said that in jest, and as soon as he said it, I said, it's done. That's what it is. It's a pink lemonade dunk match.
That's fantastic.
Loser's going to get dunked in pink lemonade. So
the whole pink lemonade, pink champagne, pink drinks has been one of my favorite things to at least write over the last several cycles. And what's funny about that is, Jake and I, we didn't plan that. We had two totally separate trash talks with Jacob and Vladimir. And in Jacob's, I believe he was sipping pink champagne, and in Vladimir's, he was drinking a disgusting pink wine cooler. And it came out of nowhere from both of us, but it worked, and it's been one of those things that has, at least for me, made writing Vladimir really really fun, especially when you have someone like Jake who's really funny and creative and kind of plays along on his end as well.
I have been and will continue to be as honest as I can, and I think that even including my own wrestlers, Jacob and Vladimir as a team, man, they crack me up. They are some of my favorite characters. Jacob and Vladimir together are top notch.
Jake's talked about this before, about how characters evolve and over time, and the writing becomes different. And we didn't even set out to team those two together. It was just kind of the nature of their characters, and then we paired up for the tag team tournament. And whatever it was just seemed to work, and has been really fun for me to be a part of. The secondary part of that I love is this third match here on the main event. We got TVB, no X's, Mr. Anderson.
No X's.
Just TVB versus Vexing Vladimir Verklempt. What Vladimir is, I'm imagining him as like the younger brother who's just doing everything that his older brother is telling him not to do. Like, TVB's his own man. He's dropping his name, and Vladimir is refusing to call him by it. Like, he's not even acknowledging it. It's very childish on the Russians' part, but one of my favorite ongoing stories right now in the league. And then our last one, I mean, gosh, this one's fun too. Adam Cash versus Aaron McFleece. So I don't know if you have a stipulation for this one or not, and maybe we come back to this as we go through the trash talk. But I loved the stipulation that Adam Cash brought up in his trash talk this cycle.
Yeah, I believe that will be stipulation, that the imaginary cash will be on the line. So I will triple check that, but I have it on good authority that the match between Adam Cash and Aaron McFleece will be a highly contested prize amount of money, if that makes sense.
Love it.
So, yeah, that'll be a good event. I think, to your point, these matches, although two of them are the second match between these competitors, Ann Spivey and Rick Rancher had one match at the Rumble. That was in Cycle 8. Newell and Jacob had a match at – Ann Spivey and Rick Rancher had a match at World Warfare, excuse me. And then Newell and Jacob had a match at the Rumble. But these feuds have been kind of ongoing and building. Adam Cash and Aaron McFleece has been building for at least 6 or 7 cycles, I think. So pretty much from the time that Aaron McFleece came in, that feud had started to build, even as Cash and Fatty the Butcher were going against the Hitman and the Reaper. So what I love to see is feuds that build over time. I think that something that wrestling does in general is guilty of is this idea of doing things too quickly. Let things build over time. And I think that these 4 matches have done a good job with building over time. So it is possible that another match or two could be added. We'll have to wait and see. I haven't had anybody specifically request such a thing, but I would definitely be interested in adding 1 or 2 more matches. I think there are definitely the capability. I feel like we've gone a pretty good length of time already, but we're just now getting into our trash talk.
I'll be a little bit snappier here as we go through.
I don't mind. I'm always concerned that listeners about 28 minutes in go, is this guy still, Mr. Anderson, still talking? So hopefully we're entertaining the 14 listeners out there. You're wonderful. We appreciate your listening. So
We might get up to 15 or 16 this time, though.
certainly possible, especially with Brad being on the show. I mean, Jake's okay, but Brad, next level.
I wish I could laugh like Jake. That's the one thing I think the show's missing for sure is that little Jake Joyce charm right there.
Yes, I think we need to insert a montage of Jake Joyce laughs. Think now. Okay, with those laughs behind us, looking at our TT, got a little something from Noble House here. Be down or get put down. Good quote from the General Colin Powell. Always happy to see some Noble House stuff. Big fans. Valinaria would love to be in Noble House. Speaking of Valinaria, he's the next page. Still on his world tour here. Seems like it's stalled out a bit. I have it on good authority that the manager of Valinaria is only going to be challenging for these 4 regionals until he wins these 4 regionals, because I don't want to be playing into this for like 20 more cycles if I don't have to.
Nice. This specific trash talk had one of my favorite lines of the cycle, and it's toward the end where he says, "CC, you and your successful." Like he won't even call him by name. He's saying, "CC and your successful partner." Like that's insulting to both Akbar and then also to CC. Like he's rubbing it in that his partner is more successful than he is. I thought that was really good.
Well, thank you, sir. I do what I can to make sure that I am somewhat creative and insulting at the same time. So I appreciate the catch on that. So, yep. So Valen, even though he lost, is still going to talk tough to both of these wrestlers. So we'll see how that works out for him. The native warrior Naul also kind of licking his wounds and still trying to get back at Jacob. Beats him up pretty bad in this trash talk here. So we'll see what develops from that. Not going to take that standing down. Oh, our next page. What do you think of our opening trash talk from Joe Kona and Tonga Ming?
I love the trash talk on the first cycle in. I think that's critical, and I think it's a quick, easy way to introduce the character. The Hawaiian Delight is just fantastic. It almost reminds me of like something you'd order like at a concession stand, like at a baseball game or something. Like one Hawaiian Delight, please, or whatever. It's really funny. It's a good name, and then we've got the bulldozer or the Samoan bulldozer, below. That's a good representation of the bulldozer as well. So a nice swing coming out of the gate, and I think as these guys and their manager gets accustomed to the league and the characters within the league, they will naturally start to find their own little feuds to work in.
Definitely. I am excited to see what develops from those two characters. On the next page here, we have some trash talk from, is it TVB and Jacob Vandenberg?
That's correct.
Oh, they're talking about the masked men here. So, seems like the masked men have been running rampant for a long time. So I appreciate that our good friend TVB is calling them out and wanting to know what's going on.
This page those are both Jake's guys. I like the way that Jake does his trash talk. He's very much of the less is more variety, and we've talked about this before, just amongst ourselves. But long trash talk is great to read when it's done well. When it's done really poorly, it can be pretty brutal at times. So Jake gets in and gets out. It's entertaining. It's quick. It's easily digestible. I like that he always sets the scene. Little things like having different font for each of his guys, I think, is a nice little set off. I've started doing that myself for my own guys, just to give it a little bit of pop.
Good stuff. Agreed once again. The staples, it's easy.
I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something absolutely ridiculous, just so you will disagree with me intentionally.
Okay.
We're almost at the rancher part. That's where I'll do it.
There we go. That sounds good. All right. We're almost there. So Blazer Corporation. I love the scratched lettering. Speaking of which, Jim, if you can share with me what font that is, I searched and searched and searched for that font, and I could not find it. And I feel like I'm pretty good at my font searches. So I got as close as I could for that Jim Blazer cover, but I was not satisfied. I need to know what font that is that you're using for the Blazer Corporation. So
That would be great if Jim just did that by hand, right? And copied it and sent it in. That would be fantastic. I hope that's what it actually is.
that would be quite skillful. So I love the picture. I love that the names are mentioned at the top there. There's a good mention of Alexander Cromwell here. So what's going on for the Blazer Corp this cycle?
I like that Tobin is plugging both the TV tag title and then also the tag tournament. I don't know if he's done it this time, but he has in the past. I think it's a nice little touch when people who are going for those commissioner titles or who have those commissioner titles kind of work that in, and it kind of elevates the profile of those belts.
Agreed.
No.
It's always nice when the commissioner titles are included in your trash talk, particularly if you're those champions. You know, we want those titles to mean something to everybody, obviously. So, yep, good on that. I believe up next we have a message about the current happenings of Rick Rancher. So what's going on there?
Rick is in the zone right now. The last cycle, the trash talk for Rick was one of the longer ones that I like to do, and hopefully it wasn't the long brutal one that I mentioned earlier. Hopefully folks actually enjoyed it. And I don't know if you or anybody else has picked this up, and it might not be super important, but this is the second cycle in a row where we've had a rancher trash talk in which he has not spoken. The long one last time involved Matt Peters chasing him around, but Rancher didn't say anything. But hopefully the message still got across where his mindset is at right now.
Working out like a madman.
He is a man on a mission with this UNL championship series is the best I can imagine. This is sort of the opposite approach, where the last one was really long and kind of drawn out and maybe probably overwritten, honestly. This one is a little shorter and hopefully gets to the point a little more quickly that our boy is on his ranch and totally locked in.
I am a fan of the work that you do for Rick Rancher anyway, not to blow smoke, but I enjoyed last cycle. I enjoyed this cycle. Something I've mentioned previously, and to once again beat a dead horse, I think it's important for our characters, at least for me, to kind of change up certain things, right? Like if Rick Rancher every cycle didn't talk and Matt Peters chased him around, that would get kind of uninteresting pretty quickly. But if it happens for 2 cycles, right, or 3 cycles, if there's an arc there, right, where if sometimes your wrestlers are talking, sometimes your wrestlers are involved in a fight, sometimes your wrestlers are doing, I don't know, I think of the Monroes. One of the first trash talks I did with them was a press conference, and so I've done that once or twice more, but that for me is kind of something I hold off on, right? And so this idea of changing up what you do for your trash talk, Tom's really excellent about that too. He doesn't do the same thing every cycle. You know, like I could be rightly accused of doing more or less the same thing with Naul almost every cycle. So I need to get that changed up a little bit maybe, right? Just something I notice. I like it. I like this trash talk. And I like the next trash talk also that includes our good friend, the Decent Muda, and another good friend of the show, Abdullah the Deli Man. So what's going on with those two enhancement talents?
Those are fantastic names, and I think that, you know, the way that Vladimir is kind of going now is a little darker. Maybe is the wrong term, but he's got some stuff to figure out. I think his partnership with Jacob has been fantastic for him, but with perhaps some lingering side effects that he may not have anticipated. We haven't seen his interpreter, who was not only, you know, literally helping him interpret, but, you know, maybe kind of his guidance along the way, sort of deal. So he hasn't been seen lately, and Vlad, you know, I wanted him to attack someone this cycle, but, you know, it didn't really feel right to do TVB or someone random. So I just had an idea to introduce the Scrub guys as a way to advance his storyline a little bit without overstepping, so to speak, what he was doing to anyone else's main guy. So I thought, what better use of the decent Muda and Abdullah the Del? I spent more time figuring out which two scrub guys I wanted to use than I did actually writing dumb things. So
Yeah, I like it. I like the idea of the occasional use of scrub wrestlers. In fact, in another league, man, I am all over the place. This is the UNL Tubecast, by the way. In another league, I use a scrub myself this cycle, and maybe I subconsciously was thinking back to this. I like the occasional use of a scrub wrestler. The inclusion kind of creates a more full world, but as you mentioned, it doesn't hurt any what we would consider like top level talent, right? You didn't attack anybody who's going to have to somehow get back their tough guy stance or anything, right? Like the decent Muda and the Deli Man are not going to be offended that you beat them up.
nah, they didn't lose any heat because they don't have any heat, man.
Exactly. Better said than I said. Good stuff. So at the top of the next page, is this another attack by the masked men?
Yeah, it is, and this one stood out to me because if you read through it and see who they're attacking and the end of it, it seems like the whoever the mastermind is or whatever behind this angle or these two masked men, it seems like it's about to pay off, right? Like the last line, no words are visible, but the camera's clearly catching in. I mean, that's a clue, right? For better or worse, it is a clue for us to know that the letter N, somehow is prominent with whoever these two masked men are, and I don't think we would get that clue if we weren't somewhat close to finding out who exactly is behind the masks here.
I agree. I think that this has been a very good mystery. I do think, though, hopefully sometime within the next few cycles, we will find out the master plan of these masked men. Certainly the clue here is the first real clue we've gotten. So I've been racking my brain trying to figure out. I had an idea, but unless the manager in question is keeping it close to the chest, it's not who I thought it was. So it's a mystery to me. I'm as enthralled as the next guy or gal.
And I think what you said is the hallmark of a good trash talk or a good angle, right? And that you were racking your brain over something that this person wrote, and I was too. I was going down the roster list and looking for a wrestler or a stable or something where the N was prominent. I don't necessarily have a theory. Obviously, I know Noble House starts with an N, but it could be any number of things. But the fact that you read something and you flip back through your bulletin and go down the title page and open up and go down the rankings, I think is the hallmark of a successful trash talk and successful angle.
Agreed. So next we have what I believe is the first actual trash talk from the Russian Reaper. His tag team partner, the Quebec Hitman, trash talks every cycle. Good stuff there. But here we have the Russian Reaper who snaps and uses a steel chair for a purpose that it was not intended for, and he lays out the man-animal and is upset with him at their elimination from the World Tag Tournament. So several interesting things here, including the use of the World Tag Tournament, the potential feud with Noble House, and also getting some more development from the Russian Reaper, who looks pretty scary in that picture, I have to say. What's going on here with Ann Spivey and Zhang Fei?
I'm not sure exactly. It seems like Mr. Rancher has been kidnapped and bound against his will, and was put in the trunk of a car and then let out. Rick Rancher's from Texas, man. He's probably been abducted before, nothing he can't handle.
Yeah, I think Rancher's going to be okay following this experience. Looking forward certainly to the Ann Spivey and Rick Rancher match at Tuesday night's main event. Going to be a really excellent return match, I do believe. Top of the last page there, Adam Cash. Oh, do you want to talk? This is where he makes his challenge for the Tuesday night's main event.
It's so creative that you got two guys who obviously are built around, maybe not wealth, but currency or value or money or whatever. And we've got Adam Cash, Fortune 500, Aaron McFleece. It's totally organic and a great feud. And Mr. Cash is issuing a challenge for all the money they've earned against all the money Aaron has earned in the UNL. I just think that's super creative. It's fun. It gives that match kind of a different element. You can make anything a steel cage match or, some other kind of specialty. And then that's fine. And it's fun and it's part of it. But this is like a totally different out there stipulation that I think makes a lot of sense and was super creative, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, I'm sorry to say, but I have to. So something else that I noticed, though, is that Adam Cash currently has $178,300, while Aaron McFleece has $353,300. So are they going to put up an equal amount of money? Is Aaron going to risk more money? I would be interested to find that out. But I think it's ingenious for the stipulation given the competitors. I'm excited. We do have a really good picture from Aaron McFleece and Tinbatsu, looking pretty tough. I like the names behind them there. I'm big on that kind of stuff. The talk is cheap, blood money, come and find us. It isn't hard. Those two gentlemen definitely make a very interesting team. So I'm excited for their character development. It's been going really good. Looking forward to this match against Adam Cash. But to finish up on a high note, finish up on what I guess I would have to call a good time. What's going on with Akbar and CC Bill?
Nothing but a good time as always, right? I love when angles kind of organically work themselves out, and what I mean by that is I saw this not to get into eyewash stuff, but in the CWL earlier this year when Barry Stevens made his kind of turn, he ended up holding the league title for 3 consecutive cycles, which is insane. And it coincided with this big turn, and it added to it because not only was his trash talk about it great, but his results backed it up, and that's hard to do. The fact that Akbar last cycle said, we got to stop partying, we got to get serious, I'm going to start doing that now. And then he was the league champ the very next run. Right. I thought was a really, really, really nice touch.
Yeah, I agree. It's awesome when the results match the story you're trying to build. So they do talk about that in this trash talk, and seems like CC is accepting that there is a good balance to be had between having a good time and making sure you're winning matches. So sounds like those gentlemen are cruising along and having a good time as they win in the ring. So to be noted, though, Akbar remained on the title page thanks to the Battle Royal. Not an easy thing to do. So for those of you who are unaware, certainly I didn't know until recently, the only way that a league champion can stay on the title page without retaining the league title is to win a title in the Battle Royal. So like the league champion can't defeat a regional champion and then become that champion. They cycle through, they cycle out, or they can win a title in the Battle Royal. So congratulations to Akbar for staying on the title page through the Battle Royal. Good stuff.
This coming cycle, you would think the Battle Royal would be full, given the match deal. If you do the match deal, you get 2 entries into the Battle Royal for $1, so 2 for the price of 1. And if you do the match deal this cycle, you get the extra 20 free scrub matches. There's kind of a double reason to do that this time. Awesome
note, sir. I appreciate the plug. I do think, if I can toot the UNL horn a little bit, I do make a serious effort at offering prizes that I hope managers enjoy. With that in mind, hopefully you have enjoyed this cycle's review. I think we probably went a little bit long, but this is Brad's first time on the show. We had a lot to talk about. I love that Brad could be on the show tonight. I appreciate it. With that in mind, I'll give him the last word here. Do you have anything else that we didn't mention that you would like to make sure that you have the chance to say or express?
The only thing I would add beyond thank you for asking me to come on, it was a lot of fun, I would just say don't mess with Texas and don't mess with Rick Rancher.
That's the best way that we could possibly end the show. For Brad Norman, I am your UNL Commissioner, Scott Anderson. We hope you have a good night. Thanks for listening. And
Tropical New Year, where's the snow? Tropical New Year, where the palm trees grow. Tropical New Year, cocktails and treats. Tropical New Year.